Oh boy, we got Devin Haney versus Brian Norman. I don't know if this is a great idea for Devin Haney to be taking this fight against Brian Norman, because Brian's a very difficult fight for Haney because he has so much power. He's a physically strong 147 pounder, especially taking into account that Devin's never actually fought at 147. He's going to be fighting a world champion, and that world champion isn't somebody that Devin can just outbox that easily. This guy's a hard puncher and he's physically strong. Like I said, he's a world champion for a reason. What he just did to Jin Sasaki in Tokyo, Japan was crazy. He flatlined him. And now Devin Haney, a guy that is coming off that Ryan Garcia beating that he took, coming off a boring performance. You know, he doesn't have a lot of momentum right now. You got a guy like Brian Norman who has all the momentum in the world, is putting on stylish knockout, devastating knockout, just great performances time and time again. And he has the momentum and Devin doesn't. So this is a very dangerous fight for Devin Haney, but I must give Devin Haney respect and credit. I applaud him for taking this Brian Norman fight. All of the trolls in the comments talking about Devin, you know, ducking Ryan Garcia rematch, and, you know, ducking Tank, ducking all these guys, Teofimo Lopez. Everybody's talking that talk about Devin Haney not being, you know, confident in himself, him being weak-minded and whatnot. But he's taking on Brian Norman. You know, everybody knows how dangerous Brian Norman is. Just watch his last fight and his fight before that against Santillan. You guys gotta, you know, understand what you're seeing right now. This guy's very dangerous, you know. So I feel like Brian Norman, I gotta favor Brian Norman just because Devin isn't on, you know, the incline right now. He's had some bumps in the road for sure, and for Brian Norman, he's a natural 147 pounder. You could argue he's ready to go to 54. As long as Brian Norman doesn't have a difficult weight cut, you know, getting down to 47, I feel like Brian Norman might just catch Devin Haney and put him to sleep. I mean, you know, Devin's not going to make this a firefight, you know, against Brian Norman. He can't afford to make this an exchange fight where, you know, with Ryan Garcia in their original fight, you know, Ryan Garcia had Devin Haney step to him, and that was an issue for Devin Haney. You know, he stepped right into that line of fire for that left hook. Brian Norman has a tremendous left hook as well, so that could be a big problem again for Devin Haney, you know, facing another huge left hook artist. And honestly, this guy's stronger than Ryan Garcia is at 147, and his left hook might be stronger as well. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how Devin Haney can take, you know, Brian Norman's power, or, you know, if he avoids it in total. You know, like, I feel like Devin Haney's style, boxing's about style, styles make fights. So Devin isn't going to fight the way, you know, Brian Norman's opponents in the past have fought him, but like, it's going to be very difficult because this guy does hit hard. He can punch in between punches. He has good offense. And like I said, physically strong, natural 147 pounder. Devin's never fought at 147. And he's going to be fighting a world champion at welterweight in his debut at welterweight, which is just a big risk. But if Devin finds a way to pull off this win against Brian Norman, man, I think he's, you know, he's right there, man. Like, I have the most respect for Devin Haney. I respect Devin more than I respect Ryan Garcia. If Devin Haney's able to beat Brian Norman in November, that would be a crazy win for him to do. You know, never fighting at welterweight, you know, having a catchweight fight with Jose Ramirez of all people, that's not a great test. You know, jumping from a washed, I don't mean any disrespect, but, you know, not the best version of Jose Ramirez on the decline, to be honest, and then going from that straight to a Brian Norman fight at 147 when you've never fought at 147. I applaud Devin Haney. That takes guts. You know, that takes a lot of boldness and bravery to take a fight against, out of all of the guys that Devin Haney could have picked off of his hit list. He could have went for the Richardson-Hitchens fight, which is still a difficult opponent, but, you know, at least Devin Haney's not threatened by such a big puncher. But at this point, Devin, I think, is trying to fight at 147. He can't make 140, and, you know, that's become apparent. But Brian Norman's definitely a very difficult fight, a very dangerous fight. The most dangerous fight I think Devin Haney's ever going to be in his life. You look at Lomachenko, very difficult fighter to go up against, but not very dangerous the same way Brian Norman is. You got Ryan Garcia. Obviously, Ryan has that left hook, but Brian Norman can punch hard with both hands. And, you know, he has a good fundamental base, and I feel like with Devin, you know, he's going to have to make sure he doesn't engage. He can't try to prove himself that he can he can exchange with another, you know, big puncher like Brian Norman, because that would be a very poor game plan from Devin Haney. He can't afford to do that against a guy of Brian Norman's caliber. At 147, Devin's going to have to really box and be intelligent. Otherwise, we could see him on the canvas and not get up. You know, we could see Devin get stopped by Brian Norman if Devin's not careful. Devin has to circle around the ring, be quick, use that movement. Don't do it excessively, but make sure you're bagging rounds and using effective aggression, and that's how Devin Haney gets the job done. Just get it done by any means necessary. You know, Devin beats Norman. Devin, you know, he's the talk of the town. You know, as long as he gets it done, I'm even okay with the snooze fest, but just don't get stopped by Brian Norman. Get the dub and move on to the next one. Don't give Norman a rematch. You know, Devin, if he beats Brian Norman, he's that guy. Again, you know, all that talk about him being weak-minded, that goes out the window if Devin beats Brian Norman in November. So we'll see what happens. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about Brian Norman and Devin Haney. I think it's a tremendous fight, but very risky for Devin. So I'm, you know, much respect to Devin and Bill Haney for taking this fight or choosing to take this fight, but it's very, you know, risky and very dangerous for Devin Haney. So we'll see what happens. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video, but I'll catch you guys on the next Boxing video. Peace.